Bitcoin stuck in a higher high right here by topping out at about 28.6, and what we've done following there is some really nice consolidation to well, really just directly sideways right here, and this kind of starts to raise the question: is this paving our way to continue on higher above our key resistance area, or are we actually going to be looking at slipping back down into this range that we were in for a very long time throughout August and September? Now, I think there's a lot going in Bitcoin's favor. I have been saying that since we were down at $17,000. I was saying that again when we fell down to $19,000 and $20,000. I was saying that again at 25k both times, and I'm telling you the same thing right now. Obviously, you guys know that I have been constantly making money off the market as well. I'm not just saying this stuff to you. I'm actually trading in these directions, and as you know, every single trade that I make is going to be made primarily with Bybit, which is linked in the description. They're going to give you up to $30,000 to trade with completely free, which is super cool when you start trading using my link in the description. So definitely do check that out. Obviously, if you're in a restricted country like the UK or US, do not use it. You won't even be able to, and they require KYC, so you need to be okay with that. But if we come to the market here and talk about what's actually going on, this is a pretty interesting setup for Bitcoin. The first thing that I want to cover with you is actually something that we already touched on in a recent video, which was that, once Bitcoin is able to kind of pump up a little bit higher, it's going to start having things like these Ichimoku clouds catch up and start providing some support for Bitcoin. And that is exactly what we're seeing. Now, I'm not loving this. Since we came up to the 28.6k area, we have tested this local low 3 times, including today, which is uncomfortable. That's too many times in my opinion, but it is what it is. We're going to carry on with this and we'll see why it's not actually that bad. What ended up happening is exactly what we said would happen, is that, the Ichimoku cloud ended up moving up nice and high, and it has now started to provide Bitcoin with some support. It's not huge, it's not amazing, but it's something, and that is worth noting in and of itself. And it's also happening off our pre-existing area of resistance, which has now flipped into support. So it's also happening at a price range that we expected this to happen at. We already knew that Bitcoin would be finding support down here because we were finding resistance over here over the course of the last weeks and months. So that's not a surprise either. It's actually very nice to see. This support continues in Bitcoin's favor over the course of the next days. So we have got a window of opportunity here for Bitcoin. And the good news for Bitcoin is that if we really zoom in, it's not actually that bad, the kind of situation that Bitcoin is in right now. Really, all I'm seeing here, and let me know what you think in the comment section, is this kind of local, almost slightly new area of resistance at 28k. It's not new. All of these areas have been around for a while, but it's clear that this is, kind of really squashing the market at the moment. If we can get back above to this high right here, which, from the current price is only $400 away. That's the swing that happens in a couple of hours right now with Bitcoin's kind of price action. This can happen very quickly. Then I'm going to have to expect that we end up breaking this resistance level. I think the overall stance in this market over the last days and weeks has quite obviously been bullish. Again, I really don't know why people have been so bearish on the market. We've only been rising, and we've only been confirming areas of support as support and confirming old areas of resistance as support. So to me, the posture is still quite bullish, and that tells me that we should be moving higher. Of course, I'm going to cover with you why that might not happen in just a moment, so stick around. Make sure you smash the like button for that as well if you are looking forward to it. If Bitcoin is able to break this area of resistance, I'm seeing it getting right up to the next areas, really, and to be honest, that the next area would be here. This is our prior high. We're going to have to clear this high, and it might not be super easy, but I certainly think we will get there. And then, of course, if we're able to pass that, this is where things get really fun, because we're now more or less going to be looking at the top of our range. If we zoom out, we can appreciate that a little bit more easily. Because this is the top range that Bitcoin has really been stuck at, and this is now, we're going back to April of this year. So, we're in October now. This has been 6 months that Bitcoin hasn't been able to climb above this resistance level, but that's also not coming as a surprise. We knew that this was going to be an important area of resistance because it's the fucking 30k level. And, if you haven't been paying attention, the 30k level was phenomenal support. It took Bitcoin well over a year to break this area of support. So I don't think it's completely unreasonable that it might take 6, 7, 8 months to break it as resistance. In fact, I think that would be relatively fast compared to how long it took Bitcoin to break it as support. So, pretty good standing here. And this is why I think, the bears are just like a little bit too far up their own fucking arse, to be honest with you guys. From everything that I'm seeing right now, I just don't see it being that bad. I think if anything that, even though it's been quite slow, even though it's been quite annoying, I think if anything, we've actually been moving a little bit aggressively, all things considered. I mean, we have doubled off the low, and again, right now we're trading at, 77% above the low. So that's a pretty bullish posture, if you ask me, for a market that's supposed to be fucking dead. And for a market where there's just constant FUD damn near every single day, whether it's with the US government or Binance or a combination or whatever the case may be, somebody getting hacked or arrested or whatever. To be up 77% from the low and at $27,000 is just not as bad as I think people are making it out to be. But let's continue. We've got some more stuff to talk about here, which is also very, very interesting. And I actually want to draw your attention over to the S&P 500 and then the dollar for why we might be looking. Actually, no, before we even get to that, let's just talk about Bitcoin's kind of bearish stance right now. Let's even this out a little bit. We are now testing this area of support for 1, 2, 3, the fourth time right here. And this is, if we don't count these smaller kind of tests as well. I mean, we could be looking at more like 5 or 6 or 7 tests of this area of support. Don't expect this to hold if we keep on coming back down. I mean, this has already run its course as far as I'm concerned. If we do something like this and come back down, I am going to expect that this breaks the next time. Is that going to be horrible? Not necessarily. There's still a lot of support for Bitcoin. Really, what we don't want to see is that we lose the higher low. So, right now we've got this stance of higher lows in the market. We've got this stance of higher highs. We only have 2 of each. As long as whatever low we punch in here doesn't get lower than this one, I'm okay with it. I don't have a massive problem with it. If you're interested, that level is at $26,000. That's going to maintain that bullish stance in the market. I was telling you guys the same thing on larger time frames, so I just want to show you how, this does relate and it does hold very, very true. And it's actually interesting because we even deviated, but we still maintained the same structure. We had a low here, a high, followed by a higher low, followed by a higher high, and then we ended up setting a higher low, which was then broken. But overall, we still maintain that perspective if we just kind of, bend the narrative a little bit. And this is where, TA gets really subjective, right? Like if you're a super hard line, like, following the yellow brick path analyst, then you're not actually going to consider this low right here as being a higher low, because you're going to be like, well, we broke this one. But if you're a little bit like me, which is still very fucking yellow brick road. I mean, I am very rigid with my analysis. I take it super seriously and I don't like to break my rules. But at the same time, I understand when the market is clearly telling me that it is expressing the same fucking characteristic over and over, which in this case was deviations, then I'm going to know that actually here is an example where it might actually be worth, giving myself an exception here and saying that actually, yeah, we did sweep this low. It's not amazing, but we do still have a sequence of higher lows. And more importantly, we've fulfilled Bitcoin's favorite fucking love language, which is forming deviations. So, when you start looking at it from that perspective, we can start to kind of, I don't want to say bend the rules. We're kind of doing that. We're kind of giving it an exception. I don't really know what it actually is, but what we're doing ultimately is taking into account what Bitcoin's key characteristics are, what it loves to express, and what it does so frequently, which are deviations. And I wouldn't put that beyond Bitcoin here. I'll be honest. I don't want to see Bitcoin dropping below these lows. But if Bitcoin gets down to here and it swept all of these lows, and it's still holding these higher lows on a slightly more macro time frame, then that's okay with me. Because what happens with deviations from a psychological perspective is that anybody that was bullish, anybody that was thinking this low is the one that we can't break, is going to throw in the towel, is going to kick the bucket and quit right before the market starts to rally. That is exactly what happened back when Bitcoin was down here. And the fact that I was able to see that was what enabled me to enter my long position right here at about 21.5K. And you can see that from the same screenshot that I've been parading for a very long time. The fact is the market just hasn't been super volatile, so I haven't been able to make too many other positions. But of course, you've seen how those have turned out as well. A couple small losses and a good number of very big wins to offset them and put a nice chunk of change in my pocket on the side as well. So super happy with that stuff. Let's talk about the S&P 500 now. This is very interesting. The S&P 500 has been performing phenomenally well. This is not super surprising. It is a little bit surprising because I would have expected that we fall down to our support level first. So we did front run that support level by quite a bit. But it's not surprising because we know that people are just getting too bearish too quickly, thinking that they're ahead of the fucking game, like they're some sort of genius that's not going to get caught out when the market tops out again. So they're going to preemptively call the top of the market every fucking day of the week while the market keeps rallying up for a year. For a year, as of like today or tomorrow, we have been rallying up pretty much non-stop, more or less. I might not be exact. Doesn't really matter. We've got the same psychological setup that I've been talking to you guys about for quite some time. Now, you might be in that camp, and if you are, I've already told you that, you know what? I kind of agree with you. Like, there is some really good evidence and data and even fundamental analysis to suggest that the S&P 500 and stock markets and so on are massively overvalued. And if that's the opinion that you have, I agree with you. I think you're right. But at the same time, what we've got here is way too fucking many Tom, Dick, and Harry average people thinking that these markets, these indices, are poised for a massive crash. And if there's anything that won't happen, it's that those average people will be right. It just doesn't work that way. So we are starting to see the S&P 500 rally up a little bit more, which is absolutely fantastic. It is now facing resistance. Resistance, might come as a surprise, tends to be where the price drops. So let's just keep that in mind. This is generally a kind of level where we would expect the price to drop. As long as we don't do anything particularly heinous after that, like a drop like this, I think we're good. We can even drop down here. We can drop down here and start to establish some new support, trade sideways a little bit, and maybe continue down from there, or something a little bit like this. But I am going to be watching to see how we interact with this resistance level. If we manage to get above this, then I think things are going to get really spicy. And what's fun is that the dollar has actually ended 11 weeks of trending up. If we take a look at the dollar right here, this is a very interesting weekly chart for the dollar. It has been trending up here for 11 weeks, 10 bars, so 11 weeks non-stop here, without really catching a break other than last week. See, last week's candle closed yesterday, and we have seen a big rejection wick for the dollar. The dollar managed to go very high throughout the course of last week and then retraced most of that move. And it begs the question, now that the dollar has moved up for 11 weeks, and we can argue that that is a very long time for the dollar to move up without some sort of correction, number one. Number two, now that the dollar has potentially started a correction, number three, the argument, can we start to say that this is going to be part of a bigger correction? Maybe not something huge, maybe just a 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks if it's going to be long, maybe, a couple of weeks of correcting, even if that means going sideways, but probably, going down, because the dollar is a little bit more zigzaggy. It doesn't really consolidate in those conventional ways. Is that what we're looking at for the dollar? Because if it is, well, that's a really good opportunity for the S&P 500. And that's great because you guys know that I've wanted to trade the S&P 500 for quite some time. I just haven't got my entry level. And I will be doing that on BingX, which you can sign up to using the link in the description down below. They allow you to trade indices, stocks like Tesla, Forex, commodities, which is super, super cool, all from a crypto deposit. So well worth checking that out. Again, only if you're allowed to in your country. I cannot stress that enough. Then that is going to be, a really interesting opportunity. And honestly, this in and of itself could be a long if we clear this resistance level, like a long a little bit higher up. Nice kind of 5% move. I mean, this could be very, very juicy indeed. Maybe not my favorite setup, but definitely not something that I would turn my back to straight away. So that's interesting. But even more interesting than that is, well, what does the implication of a falling dollar have on Bitcoin? Well, one of the things that we've seen is that while the dollar was so strong, so too was Bitcoin. And that is not something that we typically see. It's one of the things I was telling you when I was saying, hey guys, look, I just don't see that the market is as bearish as everyone else is making it out to be, because if we're in a bearish market, then bearish news should be driving the price down, but it's not. And similarly, bearish inverse correlations, when an inverse correlation exists, like the dollar with Bitcoin, when the dollar goes up, Bitcoin goes down. When we've got that kind of relationship, but it's just not working. And in other words, when there are factors that should be driving Bitcoin down, but they are not driving Bitcoin down, instead Bitcoin is going up, well, that can be a display of strength. Now we flip it around. Whereas previously, things that should have hurt Bitcoin were not hurting Bitcoin, what about when things that usually give Bitcoin strength are present in the market? Am I making sense? Do you see where I'm getting at here? Where previously Bitcoin was facing factors that make it weaker, now Bitcoin is potentially starting to face factors that make it stronger. And Bitcoin has been strong the whole time. Does that mean we're going to go from strong to very strong? I think it very well might. And if it does, that's going to be Bitcoin's golden ticket to get back up to that $30,000 range. And let's talk about that a little bit, because this is fun. This is really interesting. If Bitcoin is able to get above that $30,000 range, or even to that $30,000 range, I want you to keep in mind that we've been messing around at these levels for quite some time now. If we take a look at this chart right here, again, like I said, it was support for an incredibly long period of time, but also resistance for a long period of time now. And the kind of breakouts that we've had off this level, have been explosive. This could get very, very interesting. And I think that, and I've been saying this for a while, the probability of this kind of, breakout above 30K keeps going up with time. If you open up any book that teaches you about technical analysis, any book that teaches you about the principles of trading markets, what you're going to see is that if you're in an uptrend, which we are in, from this low to our current price, we have been trending up. So check, we are in an uptrend. You'll see that if we're in an uptrend and we reach the high, and then we consolidate for a shitload of time, that can only be a good thing for the market. Now, you might sit here and be like, well, this is an exceptional time, and Bitcoin's, this, and this, and this, and this is why Bitcoin's, going to struggle. And again, you might be right. You might be right. But trying to keep it realistic here, if I'm just looking at what the chart is telling me, the chart is telling me that the price doubled off the low and then couldn't get knocked down in a bear market for months, leading into the highest probability of an SEC ETF approval that we've ever seen, leading into the Bitcoin halving of 2024, leading into a bunch of really solid events for Bitcoin and just a really solid chart with a lot of consolidation. I might be wrong, and I'm okay with that. I will make money if the market goes down, mark my words. I've done it many times before, and I will do it again. But to me, this looks like the kind of setup that tends to work really well for any financial market, especially for markets like Bitcoin. When you consolidate right at a high, well, let me just show you one of the times that we actually did that back in 2020, and you'll start to appreciate what I'm talking about a little bit more. Here's what we did. We absolutely had a moonshot, all the way up to that $20,000 level. And granted, we didn't spend as long up here, but, the market overall was moving a lot faster. We ended up trading sideways much in the same way, and it happened at the top, and that was only a continuation pattern for Bitcoin to break higher. It's beautiful because we did the same thing again. I traded this move from here all the way up to like 30K, and I pulled like a 400% profit, something fucking insane. VIP members saw exactly what was going on there. You can follow these steps right here to get inside of VIP if you are interested. I traded the same kind of thing up here because Bitcoin, reached a high and just started to consolidate. And again, bull markets move a lot faster, but it's the same chart pattern that we're looking at here. It's really, nothing is particularly different. So, and by the way, there are times where it goes wrong. Here's a similar situation. We traded sideways and it didn't work out for Bitcoin. We got duped and it lasted about a month, but then Bitcoin was right back on its merry way. So, it's not foolproof. It doesn't happen all the time perfectly, but I do think that we are looking at a pretty interesting setup nonetheless. Now, here's something fun. Here's something fun for you guys that have got the lotion on the side waiting for me to spice this video up even more. We've got some really interesting potential phases for Bitcoin's bull markets. If we take a look at what happened back here in 2018, we had this really big downtrend line that Bitcoin broke and kind of led into the next one, which Bitcoin also broke, which led into the next one, which Bitcoin broke. And what we can see off these highs is that, we have these consecutive, kind of bearish levels. And the first one is the hardest one. The first one is the biggest one. It takes the longest amount of time to break. The second one, is still, not super easy to get to. I mean, you can kind of see how far the price has to rally off the low to get to the first line and how far we have to rally to get to the second line. But that third line is easy. And this is where things get really interesting. If Bitcoin is going to follow that same kind of price action, that does potentially give us a speculative target of $130,000. Now, how accurate and scientific is this analysis? Not very. It's just something interesting to point out. All we're interested in when we do this kind of fractal-based analysis, all we're interested in is spotting patterns and spotting characteristics. Does it mean that those patterns will copy-paste play out again and again and again? No. Does it mean that characteristics are worth paying attention to? Absolutely, yes, they do, brother. And I'll tell you why. If you follow the kind of characteristics that Bitcoin exhibits, you're going to be able to point out things like that deviation example I gave you earlier in the video, and being able to notice those things is what can make you a lot of money. The markets are not fair. The markets do a lot of fuckery, and if you're not aware of what that looks like, you're going to get caught up in it. If you are aware of what it looks like, you're going to have even better opportunities to profit in the market. To be able to pull this kind of gain, which, at the time of recording is even higher right now. It's close to like 300% profit. And I've already secured so much profit on this position. I've more than doubled my money. You don't just fall into these positions by accident. You need to be well positioned. And I mean, it's very obvious by, kind of understanding the characteristics of how Bitcoin behaves. I'd have to say it's probably one of the top things you could do to help yourself. It does put you in incredibly, incredibly strong positions. VIPs continue to see how I trade these markets behind those closed doors. So definitely do get yourself inside if you are interested in checking that out as well. Now, if we do take a look at one of the parallel channel models for Bitcoin that we've kind of looked at in the past as well, it does interestingly give us a similar target. If we kind of extrapolate a target zone using some, just basic diagonal lines off Bitcoin's previous highs from the last two bull markets, it does start to give us a potentially very interesting target around that $130,000 level. So we're starting to see some confluence here from different unrelated patterns, and also my most hated, but for some reason everybody loves these kind of charts, my most hated example is these curved lines, also showing us a potential cap for Bitcoin at about $130,000. So again, how scientific are all of these charts? Not very, but there's this fun saying: if you meet 3 assholes a day, then you're probably the asshole. And and similarly, if you get 3 different charts that are unrelated showing the same thing, well, it doesn't mean that those charts are right, but they might be worth a second look. And that's why I'm putting them on your radar right here. Again, all of this stuff requires a $32,000 Bitcoin breakout. And if that doesn't happen, then we can kiss all of these dreams goodbye. If we take a look at Ethereum here, we have failed yet another area of support, which is a shame. Really not something that you want to keep on seeing. But I suppose the good news is that Ethereum has, just continued to slide lower and lower against Bitcoin, and we can actually see that reflected with the Bitcoin dominance. I mean, if you've been holding altcoins, and fuck me, if you're watching this channel and you've been on these sinking boats, I don't even know what to say to you. I mean, the warnings have been so clear. I've been incredibly upfront with you guys about how dangerous these coins are to be holding in bear markets, and we've spoken extensively about it. I was warning you guys when the market was at the top back in 2021, 2022. My God, I had so much backlash and so much hate for saying those kind of things. It was absolute just napalm fire on the YouTube channel, the way these guys were just clanking away at their keyboards, being those little keyboard warriors, feeling all powerful with their XRP bags and their Matic bags. Where is it going now for you, bro? The fact of the matter is, when you're hearing things like these coins are fucking dangerous, be careful, you're in a bull market and you're very euphoric, and you know what? Taking profits isn't such a bad idea. When you hear these kind of things and you want to attack the person instead, you're the kind of exit liquidity that people like me use. So, you know, a lot of these people won't learn their lesson, and even if they do, it's now too late. They've lost too much money. But I really hope that you guys are among the group that have heeded those warnings, that have protected yourself from these losses. I don't see this stopping. You know, I do think that there are going to be opportunities in the altcoin markets. But the fact is that, you know, until Bitcoin is in a much safer position, there just isn't going to be a risk appetite for these coins. You know, one of the things that, you know, to be honest, really disappoints me is that, you know, Cardano has been down at such a critical area of support for so long, but it just hasn't been able to climb up. We can actually see this with Cardano against Bitcoin. It just hasn't done anything. It's been so damn weak for so damn long, and I don't think that that's a coincidence. This is just a reflection. I mean, look at Solana. It's had some really nice news in the recent weeks, and it can't do shit. Solana's just not achieving anything, you know, and these are coins that should be easier to move. Here, take a look at Pepe, down 7%. I mean, you know, there's just nothing nice going on here. You know, all of this happening on a day where Bitcoin is only down by a percentage point. You know, I mean, this is very, very, you know, characteristic of the market at times like this. You know, and if you ignore that because you've been watching some shit munching YouTuber that tells you that these coins are going to the moon in 2024, then, you know, I almost want to say that you deserve it if I didn't feel so fucking sorry for you guys. But yeah, it's important to keep this stuff in mind. I think that, you know, we could be looking at some capitulation around the corner. You know, if not, we could just be looking at continued bleeding. I like what I'm seeing with Ethereum. You know, Ethereum, I think, is one of those coins where, you know, it's not such a small coin where, you know, you can't trust it, but at the same time, it's just not safe enough to be considered as, you know, S tier as Bitcoin, you know, and as a result, if you are able to kind of position yourself well, then Ethereum is actually a really good buy. Even right now, against Bitcoin, Ethereum looks like a good buy to me. This is more or less the same low that Ethereum has been able to hold for 850 days. That's like 2.5 years or something now. That's a very, very long time. We did have a deviation down here, and we are potentially forming another deviation now, so I'm not saying that this can't drop lower, but in terms of good areas to pick some Ethereum tokens up, this has proven to be a very good one over the last couple of years. Again, doesn't mean it will be now, but it certainly worked very well in the past. Am I going to be buying here? I don't know yet. I'm going to have to look at this chart a little bit closely, and if I do, I will be informing VIPs about that. Losing this red line is not good. You know, we didn't even lose this red line when we had the fake out. We didn't even lose this line, so you know, it's really, it's not ideal to be below this red line. It could be a sign of something really bad. You know, so it is going to require a little bit more evaluation from me, but bottom line, I think, you know, with a good stop loss, you know, and some careful analysis of the fundamental and technical landscape for Ethereum, this is a really interesting place to potentially be picking some up. And it especially depends on how Ethereum holders feel. You know, if everyone's starting to slam Vitalik again and it's just turning into a shit show on the Ethereum side of things, then, you know, that might just be your sign that this is, you know, approaching some really interesting levels to start picking up some Ethereum tokens. But there you go, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this one. You know exactly what to do. If you have, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, tick the bell, do all of that beautiful stuff. Take advantage of these amazing offers that are available to you with the links in the description down below. Again, up to $30,000 when you trade on Bybit using my link in the description. You do need to start trading with my link first, and then they will give you that cash. You also can trade spot markets completely free of charge. And it's worth noting that if you hold, for example, a lot of a shitcoin and you just can't sell it for whatever fucking reason, you don't need to. If you want to trade on Bybit, you can actually trade the same kind of, you know, margin trading accounts that I'm doing. You know, you can trade Bitcoin on leverage and stuff like that without even selling into Bitcoin. You don't need to hold Bitcoin or USDT or any of that stuff to trade those markets. You can trade those markets directly while you're holding your shitcoins. So if that sounds interesting to you, then definitely do check that out. And again, BingX, very, very cool opportunity here, given that that we have got access to stock markets indices and so on. Also, I want to highlight CoinW with you guys. This is a new exchange that I began working with. They're not new, but they are new to me. They are going to give you $50 for free. You don't even need to make a deposit. This is the best offer I've ever seen on an exchange because it is completely risk-free on your side. You don't need to do anything other than make an account, and they will give you $50 free to trade with. So, you know, I mean, if that's useful to you, you know, obviously if you're trading with $100,000, you're not going to care about this. But if your account balance is a little bit smaller than that, then this is worth checking out. I mean, if anything, just make it a challenge, you know, and have some fun with it. Definitely cool, and they do have even bigger bonuses than Bybit as well. So check them out. I've actually met the founder, super cool guy. You know, he really gave me vibes of someone that, how do I say this? He was a very, he felt like a very stereotypical character that is extremely tech savvy. He was quite socially awkward. And by extension of those two attributes, I felt like he was the right guy to be head of an exchange. Don't get me wrong, I love the charismatic 𝗢𝗢𝗚s of the world, the thought-provoking 𝗬𝗙𝗔𝗓s of the world. But the CoinW founder that I met, dude just seemed like, you know, the kind of guy that almost like a little bit like SBF, plays League of Legends a lot, you know, super just kind of in his own world, but knows his shit better than anybody else. I thought that was interesting. I didn't get to meet him for long, but I thought that was pretty cool. I did see their office here in Dubai, so super cool stuff there. Yeah, go check them out if you are interested. There's no risk on your part. You don't need to deposit anything. You still get $50 for free. All right, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this one. Thank you all very much for checking this out, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.